Welcome, Reds, to the 100% United pod. I'm your host, TC, and today we'll be looking back on a disastrous day at Wembley and looking forward to the West Ham game on Wednesday. Top four's there for the taking, the only good news for the weekend, really. But first, our FA Cup run is over. Overrun by Chelsea 3-1 on the day. A sobering display and a shocking performance, really, from United, from back to front. We discussed on the previous pod whether Ollie would make a host of changes. I did suggest, I asked Scott whether he thought Ollie might change the formation. Scott said no way. So that shows what we were thinking as United fans. Keep doing the same good things that we've been doing the last few weeks. Don't change the format too much. But Ollie did. He went for the three at the back. He brought Eric Bailly in as part of the back three alongside Harry Maguire and Victor Lindelof. And to be honest with you, we invited Chelsea onto us. Chelsea went for a similar formation, but you have to say they kind of did to us what we've been doing to big teams, sort of stifled us and sort of beat us at our own previous game that we used to play. Another notable selection from Ole Gunnar Solskjaer has to be that David de Gea started in place of Sergio Romero. Romero started all of our FA Cup games so far this season. And again, I asked Scott on the last pod, do you think he might put Romero in? He said no, keep David de Gea in, keep on from his good performance, as you'd have to say, at Selhurst Park. At the time, it seemed like the right thing to do. Hindsight's a brilliant, beautiful thing, isn't it? As we'll mention later, David de Gea had an absolute shocker. Fred came in for Paul Pogba in midfield, and then Daniel James started up front, basically alongside Marcus Rashford, with a midfield of Fred, Matic and Bruno Fernandes. Now, Brandon Williams started as a left wing-back. Aaron Wan-Bissaka was a right wing-back. It didn't work. We didn't have the numbers going forward. James and Rashford looked isolated at times. Bruno seemed to be playing as a false nine, but we didn't have enough numbers in attack. We also didn't really have the numbers in midfield because Bruno was getting stuck between his attacking position, his defensive position. And it was a real stinker, to be fair. At the first 45 minutes, we didn't have a shot on target. We got totally closed down. Chelsea strangled the life out of us. They were pressing very, very hard. Look, Chelsea had a lot more preparation time. They had a lot more time to recover from their previous game than we did. And it did show. We they were massively up for it. And that was the biggest disappointment of the day, really. We had such a fillip the day before with Arsenal, putting City out and waiting for us in the final. And look, if you'd asked us if we could play Arsenal in the final instead of City, we were rubbing our hands on Saturday night. And then the opportunity was put there in front of us. And unfortunately, we just let it pass us by, really. It was really, really disappointing. Look, there was elements of misfortune in the day as well as poor performances. First half, as I say, we didn't have a shot on target. Chelsea had a massive chance from Marcos Alonso at the far post. A massive free header. Bruno had a free kick. Wasn't too much going on. It looked like we'd get in at half-time 0-0, and maybe that was kind of the plan. Keep it tight, keep it sort of 0-0, and then bring on the cavalry and finish them off. Unfortunately, luck did strike in a bad way for United. Bailly smashed his head first of all, I think, on Kurt Zuma, and then just a minute or two later, smashed heads with Harry Maguire. Maguire splitting his eye open, Eric Bailly splitting his head open. Bailly chose to walk off rather than get the stretcher, and then he kind of collapsed. Very worrying stuff. He was down there for about 10 minutes, neck brace and all. Apparently taken straight to hospital. So we wish Bailly all the best. I believe he's been released from hospital now, but it's not a good sight. He does throw himself about, doesn't he? Blimmin' hell, smashing his head 2 times in 2 minutes. Look, Ollie made the sub Anthony Martial on for Eric Bailly. So it was an unfortunate thing because it was just before half-time and it kind of gave the game away to Frank Lampard. So it allowed him to then at half-time know exactly how we'd line up for the second half with a 4-3-3 effectively. Unfortunately, we didn't make it to half-time because Anthony Martial had a massive shout for what we thought was a penalty originally. It was just outside the box. Kurt Zuma kicking the back of his foot heel. Bizarrely, Mike Dean chose not to do anything at all. Very bizarre stuff. Some people calling for a red card. Think it would have been harsh to give him a red card there. He wasn't going. He was going towards. He was on the edge of the box, but he wasn't going directly towards goal. The last man thing isn't really in play anymore. I don't think it was quite a red. It was definitely a yellow. It was definitely a free kick. Mike Dean chose to do nothing at all. And unfortunately, look, there was about 11 minutes of added time at the end of that first half. And just as it was coming to the close, Brandon Williams didn't track his man. Azpilicueta slipped down the right there, crossed in to Olivier Giroud. Victor Lindelof really got to be getting tighter on his man there. It was really shoddy defending as well. Giroud clipped it, and it went in between David de Gea's arm and his leg. And look, we'll get to a bigger mistake just after half time in a minute, but even that one, I thought that was a bit of a shocker from David de Gea. You've got to be saving them. You're playing for one of the biggest clubs in the world. His FA Cup semi-final, it clipped him and dribbled over the line. Yeah, look, after the second one, I know quite a few people are saying he can't be blamed for the other two. Oh, for me, it was bad goalkeeping. It was bad goalkeeping, bad defending as well. As I say, Brandon Williams and Victor Lindelof have a bit to answer to as well. But David de Gea has got to be bailing them out there as well. Look, we've talked about the attack before when we talked about having those options up there and those goal scorers. And when Rashford's out of the goals, Greenwood and Martial picking up the slack. When Greenwood's gone a little bit quiet in the last couple of games, Martial and Rashford are picking up the slack. The defence has got to start doing that too. When someone makes a mistake, it can't carry on to another mistake and another mistake. You can't have 3 mistakes in a row, which it was. And, we'll get to the next goal in a minute. It was the same again. One of them has got to be doing their job there. You've got to be helping your teammates out. You can't just be putting one mistake on top of another mistake on the top of another mistake. It was really shoddy stuff. And as I say, the problem there was then we went in at half time. Lampard knew exactly what we'd be doing for the second half. I presume Lampard probably thought that's how we'd line up in the first place. So he set his side up in a certain way to contain that 4-3-3. We played the 3-5-2, if you like, whatever you want to call it. They basically got through that at 0-0. As soon as it went to 4-3-3, they got the goal. They were able to identify where the threats were going to come and prepare for the second half. Unfortunately, whatever tactics Lampard had up his sleeve and whatever preparation he did say at half time, again out the window because the ball didn't go out of play from the kickoff before they scored. It went back. We played it across the back four. There were multiple options to get the ball progressively forward. Wan-Bissaka chose to go back in. Daniel James actually pointed for him to go back, didn't want the responsibility. Popped it back along. Maguire drove out of defence, popped it into Brandon Williams. Brandon Williams had plenty of time to play the ball there. Chose to run back a good number of metres back inside his own half and then played a, you'd have to say, ridiculous lofted square ball into the middle of the park, into Mason Mount. And Mason Mount was pretty much on his own. Giroud made a run, but it wasn't a run of any danger. Fred was getting back too, and Victor Lindelof and Harry Maguire just backed off. But what came next is just unforgivable. Like I say, when your defenders aren't closing down properly, when they're losing their man, it was an absolute blooper from David de Gea. It was a shocking shot from Mount. It bounced twice before getting to de Gea, and oh, dear me. If your Sunday league keeper let that in, you'd be tearing your hair out, throwing all kinds of barbs at him. It was just abysmal stuff. And yeah, it's a real problem we got at the moment, unfortunately. We've had this amazing goalkeeper who's been our saviour for so many years, so many United fans so fond of him. Me, myself, he was my favourite player for years. He was the only option. And, after he got through that bad spell at the start of his United career, he was one of us. We were proud of him, proud of the way he reacted to that sort of baptism of fire. You remember the refs weren't giving him anything. There were all kinds of strikers bashing into him and the refs were just letting it go. But he rose from the ashes of what seemed like would be sort of a flop at United, and he reacted so well and became at one point the best keeper in the world. But now it makes it a harder decision now, doesn't it, for United? Because the thing is, if it was someone we'd brought in, if we'd bought David de Gea 2 years ago, he'd be dropped by now. That's one thing for sure. So it's his past performances. It's the hope that he can rise again to the levels he's shown in the past. But it has been a long time now. I know we've mentioned it before. Me and Scott discussed it about the Russia World Cup and how his confidence took a massive dive. The Spanish press and fans were very harsh on him too. And that confidence seemed to slip out of his game a little bit. And now, well, I'll get to the running and the decisions that we have to make later. And I don't want to... The last thing I want to do is slam De Gea too much, because, of course, it's hurting him just the same as it's hurting us. But last year, we let a load of games slip because De Gea mistakes. They were showing a catalogue of errors from this season. It was just absolutely shocking stuff. It really was. Some of the goals he's chucked in are just not good enough. And, yeah, a real problem back there. And 2-0 down, 46 minutes. Unfortunately, it looked like it was game over already. Rashford had a chance, raced away. Fantastic bit of play from Rashford. Just wide of the right post, left-footed shot across the keeper. And, oh, God, if that had gone in, maybe it would have been different. Who knows? We went for the changes on the 55th minute. Paul Pogba and Mason Greenwood came on for Fred and Daniel James. I think Ollie kind of got stuck between two things on this game. He got stuck between saving people for the West Ham game on Wednesday and then Leicester on the Sunday and getting this tie done. Look, if you're going to bring Pogba and Greenwood on anyway on 55 minutes, why not do it after the goal? Why not give them an extra 10 minutes? Because we were 2-0 down then anyway, and just giving us sort of 35 minutes to score 2 or 3 goals. Why not give us the whole 45? I would have said, just pull the trigger there, Ollie, and let's go for it. Or don't bother bringing them on and let's save them for Wednesday. It's one or the other, surely. David de Gea did make a save from Giroud, a deflected shot, very acrobatic save. Some people saying it's a superb save. It was an all right save. Normal stuff from a keeper, really. Harry Maguire had a header from a corner kick. Caballero missed it completely, and there was an open goal gaping. Like we discussed before, Harry Maguire gets his head on so many blooming corners, but he doesn't attack the ball. He kind of lets it hit his head and hopes it goes in. He's got to be more decisive there. He really does. Keeper's missed it. It's our chance to get it back in the FA Cup semi-final. And unfortunately, it was kind of the order of the day for United. We were passive. We had everything going for us. Look, we had Arsenal were waiting in the final for us. We'd had a fantastic result in the Premier League earlier in the day. We should have been bouncing out there, full of confidence, full of buzz. And it just wasn't there. It just wasn't there. David de Gea had another good save from Reece James from a header. Good save. It was a good save. But then, unfortunately, just from the same passage of play, ball whizzed in from Alonso. It looked like Rudiger had scored, but actually, Harry Maguire got the last touch. And again, way too close to David de Gea for my liking. And this is the big worry at the moment with de Gea. There's lots of shots that are going in between his hand and his leg. And he's kind of getting stuck between which one he should go with, whether he should go with his leg or go with his hand. And it's a massive worry. That used to be a massive, brilliant part of David de Gea's game. He would go with his feet when he needed to, go with his hand when he needed to. And he'd always make the right option. And now it's just like he's second thinking things. It's sad to watch. It really is. I mean, Phil Neville said after the game that he had expected David de Gea on top form to save all 3. And I have to agree. I really do. The first one he should have saved. The second one, oh my God, just abysmal. And the third one, I think he should have saved too. I really do. And again, that thing of, defenders make an error. Maguire puts through his own and you want your keeper to bail you out. And they're not doing it back there. I just wonder with David de Gea, I don't know. I mean, I know the form dipped before the goalkeeping coach change. But I just wonder, in terms of getting down for that Mason Mount shot. He went to almost kind of catch it, when in the past he would have beaten that away. And you just wonder whether a little bit of coaching has gone in there to try and sort of influence him to catch more and not parry away as much, and whether that's created some of that second guessing. I don't know, but it seems a bigger problem than that. It seems like a confidence thing. Long range shots now are, they're hiding behind your hands every time, aren't you? It's really worrying. Anthony Martial won a penalty. Hudson-Odoi bringing him down in the box. Bruno stepped up. The hop was back. Shame I haven't got Scott alongside me, because I know he hates the hop. I knew he'd do it, actually. I knew he'd do it because he'd done a few without the hop. Caballero's not the kind of keeper who waits for a penalty and goes for it. And it's good from Bruno. I like that. I like mixing it up. I really do. Bruno, again, the shining light for United. It wasn't his best game again for us, but he still tried to make things happen. He was kind of stuck doing two men's jobs out there. And it was too little too late, basically. Hudson-Odoi could have made it 4 late on, but as it was, you have to say we got blooming humiliated out there in Wembley. You have to hold your hands up. It was really, really, I was furious, I must say. And unfortunately it's the second time now. Look, when Southampton squeezed the life out of us, we struggled with our normal formation, and now Chelsea have come out and sort of squeezed the life out of us again, and we look clueless. No one was taking responsibility. As I say, we made the subs. Igalo came on with 10 minutes to go, and you know what? If we're going to play that system, I think you've got to play a hitman. You've got to play a striker, at least Anthony Martial. Look, don't forget, since we've been back, it's been Martial, and on this run, which is now over just shy of 20 games, unbeaten, Anthony Martial has been almost ever present, and if he hasn't, Igalo's been in there. So again, Ollie's sort of changed a winning formula, and it hasn't worked. It hasn't worked at all. One thing that really annoyed me, look, I know Ollie always smiles when he shakes the manager's hands. I'm used to that. That's fine. David de Gea smiling, smirking when he's coming off to the Chelsea players. Blooming hell. That really blooming annoyed me a lot. It really did. So yeah, it's not been a good week really for United. We of course beat Crystal Palace, but we dropped points in the last minute against Southampton when we really could have been right in the mix there. And now we are out of the FA Cup, and Chelsea will play Arsenal, and it would have been such a nice end to the season before going into the Europa League to be able to play an FA Cup final. I was so excited about it yesterday. It was just like a bubble was burst. Look, stats-wise, we dominated possession 51-49, 7 shots to their 13, 3 shots on target to their 7, 3 corner kicks each, 9 fouls by us, 21 by Chelsea. One thing I do have to actually mention is Mike Dean was absolutely bobbins again. Wembley stage, blooming up to his usual nonsense. He bottled it with the Zuma foul on Martial, didn't make a decision, kind of left it to VAR. Once VAR saw it was outside the box, nothing they can do. They can't give a blooming free kick unless they want to say it's a red. Chelsea made 21 fouls, a lot of them tactically. Whenever we broke the press, they made a blooming tactical foul, and he didn't book them once. Pogba comes on, makes a 50-50 challenge. A Chelsea guy jumps over him, and he whips the book out straight away. Yellow card. 9 fouls for us, 1 yellow. 21 fouls for them, 0 yellows. It's just crap refereeing. Really rubbish refereeing. And I knew in the first half when he didn't whip his card out a couple of times, I knew Dean was up to his old nonsense again. Just a blooming stinker of a ref. He really is. So yeah, I mean, there's not much more we can say about it. I mean, it was just a shocking display. Look, from David de Gea, bad display, really, really bad display. Maguire didn't cover himself in glory, bad display from him too. Lindelof, again, not great. Eric Bailly he was all right, 0-0, but he managed to wipe out our captain. I just wonder whether Maguire might have been carrying a bit of concussion as well. He seemed groggy on the floor, but we couldn't bring them both off. And Bailly was blooming in a lot worse state than Harry Maguire. So he was the one that was obviously going to get hooked And it was almost out of necessity. Maguire taped his head up and had to carry on. But you just wonder whether he did have some of those after effects. Wan-Bissaka wasn't great either. They targeted him really on the ball. They targeted him pressing. And look, Wan-Bissaka and Brandon Williams, they're, as wing backs, we miss Luke Shaw. You have to say we miss Luke Shaw. Sometimes absence does make the heart grow fonder. And when someone's taken out of the team, you see how much they're giving to the team. And he really has improved recently, especially with his attacking. And he doesn't make the kind of bloopers that Brandon Williams did, especially for Mounts. And of course, he didn't track his man for the first goal either. So, yeah, you wouldn't say any of the defence came out of it with any kind of credit. Matic and Fred, I've said for a long time that Matic and Fred I don't think works in midfield particularly, and especially if you haven't got McTominay in there as well, there was just no cohesion. It was really bad stuff. Bruno tried his best, and Rashford and James were just starved of any kind of service. And you're expecting them to do something. Rashford possibly is capable of it, but Daniel James needs the ball played into the channels. He needs space to be created for him. You don't want him coming back with his back to goal and looking for passes and then expecting, what do you expect? And then you've got one up front. It was just, like I say, I think in hindsight, maybe if you're going to rest people, maybe Igalo should have started or Martial should have started instead of one of them as well. It's just, he ended up playing 45 minutes anyway, didn't he? And just wonder whether we should have done it the other way round, got the game done and then made the substitution. So, yeah, really, really disappointing day at Wembley. And, worrying stuff, really, because, look, the end of last season, whenever we had the opportunity to take a step forward, we crumbled. And whenever, don't forget, Spurs were bleeding points at the end of last season, begging us to overtake them in the league. And every time we had the opportunity, we dropped the ball. And unfortunately now, we did at Southampton when we had the opportunity, conceding late at Old Trafford. We've now completely wet the bed at Wembley and blown the FA Cup. And now we've been given another chance by Leicester. So this week is really going to test our mettle, and it's going to show us whether we have grown as a team, whether we have got those yips that we got at the end of last season, whether they are out of our system, because we play West Ham now at Old Trafford and we've got the chance to go above Chelsea and above Leicester before Chelsea play after us against Liverpool. So this is the golden opportunity. Leicester got absolutely spanked at Spurs, 3-0 at White Hart Lane. And now effectively, 2 draws would actually be enough for us. If we draw to West Ham and we draw to Leicester, we will qualify for the Champions League. But let's forget that. We need to demolish West Ham. We need to go 3 points ahead of Leicester. As I say, we will go above Chelsea before they travel to Anfield. When Liverpool are going to be up for it, we know why. And it's going to test the mettle of this team. Look, if we beat West Ham by 3 goals, we can lose to Leicester by 1 on the final day of the season and still qualify for Europe. If we beat West Ham by 5 goals, we can lose by 2 and still qualify for Europe. Leicester are going to have a 7-day rest. We're going to have a 4-day rest. So basically, it's going to separate the men from the boys. That's the truth of the matter. Chelsea, as I say, play Liverpool straight after our game, and then they've got Wolves on the last day of the season. It's all there to play for, but it was all there to play for last season. It was all there to play for on Sunday. It was all there to play for last Monday. And look, I'm going to forget about it, and I'm going to look positive ahead to Wednesday and ahead to Sunday. But I've got a little bit of worry going through my veins because of what happened last season and of what we've seen in 2 of the last 3 games. And look, Scott said it. He said if we played like we played against Crystal Palace, against a half-decent side, we would have lost that. And that's exactly what happened at Wembley. I think it goes without saying it's an absolutely monumental week for Manchester United. As I mentioned before, the transfer window opens in 1 day after the end of the Premier League season. We then go into the Europa League. If we don't qualify for the Champions League, we won't know. We won't know if we're qualifying through the Europa League for another month. So it's absolutely critical that we get this done. I think it goes without saying that there will be changes. Well, there's going to have to be changes. Eric Bailly looks like he's out for a little while. So first of all, people are saying, should David de Gea be dropped after another less than impressive display? I think it's too late for that. too late in the season to pull David de Gea out. It's possible that Sergio Romero could come in. I just don't see it happening. I really don't. I think the worry is, and I said this at the end of last season, I actually said he should have been dropped at the end of last season because I said that players would be peppering shots in from all over the shop. And that's exactly what happened. And unfortunately, look, against West Ham and then against Leicester, there's going to be bombs coming in from all over the shop, because that's what happens when you know a keeper's, and on such a large occasion when everyone's watching, you want to test the keeper, and David de Gea is going to know they're doing it, and it's kind of a knock-on effect. So I think he will stick with David de Gea. There is a case for him to be dropped. It's surprising that Ollie didn't actually go for Sergio Romero at Wembley. It was he's played every cup game, like I said, and it's just a shame he didn't, really, isn't it? Because we could have avoided all that palaver. I hope Luke Shaw's back in at left back. It'd be a real fillip for us if we can see Luke Shaw back on the left, and then have that back four that's been there for most of the run with Wan-Bissaka, Maguire and Lindelof there. Matic, well, look, he's played another 90 minutes, hasn't he, at Wembley? Although he did take a little bit of a break against Crystal Palace. So I don't know whether he'll be saved for Leicester. We know his performance level does drop when he plays too many games in a week. Paul Pogba, you'd expect to come back in. I think we did miss that sort of cohesion in midfield, that Matic, Pogba, Bruno balance has worked so well, hasn't it? And Fred just didn't, especially with the Chelsea team that were pressing and pressing and pressing. They were especially pressing that back sort of seven, effectively, wasn't it? Let's hope we can find that little bit of cohesion. Pogba and Bruno in there. You'd expect to go with the classic front three, wouldn't you? Rashford on the left, Greenwood on the right, Martial up top. Martial, of course, has had a 45-minute rest. But, yeah, it is absolutely critical that we get this win against West Ham, and handsomely would be fantastic. Kind of put this to bed. One positive thing is when this United team does get written off, it's generally when we put in our best performances. It's when we're riding high and we're expected to win and take that next step, is normally when we stumble. So hopefully we can put one over, because David Moyes would love to get one over on us, I'm sure. Come back to Old Trafford and sort of be a party pooper. But you'd expect us to go back to that 11 that did so well and Ollie picked game after game after game. Another thing you'd have to possibly say, even when you're going well, you want to change maybe one player, maybe two players there, here and there, just to keep that freshness going. Maybe another thing that Ollie could be criticised for, I'm not sure. But it's all good and well when you're winning, and then when you lose one, of course, the knives come out. So look, I'm looking on the positive side. The FA Cup's gone. Absolutely devastated about that. I was just getting the Southampton game out of my system, if I'm honest. But the FA Cup's gone, and we have a massive chance to get into that top four, get Champions League football, avoid the penalties from Adidas and the monetary penalties that naturally come with not participating in the Champions League. Know exactly what we're preparing for next season, so we can start business a day after the season, and then we can just have a real good run at the Europa League. Because if we can get into the top four and win the Europa League, then you can look back at this season and say, look, we've had our ups and downs. It looked like we were down and out in January, and we've really rescued it round, and we just got to get the job done now. So let's hope we can get over the line, get that transfer window started, and know where we stand, and then really attack the Europa League. So look, fully behind the boys. Unfortunately, I have to criticise them today because it was a shocking display. But we've got two big games this week, and they need us behind them. So let's hope. Thanks for listening again, everyone. If you're new, subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your pods. Follow our Instagram at United100Podcast2. We'll be back after the West Ham game on Wednesday. Until then, keep your chins up. Take care. Cheerio, Reds.